Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my SummerSlam 2026 preview. We are on the last leg of this road to SummerSlam, and it's been a very interesting road to SummerSlam this year, as most of 2026 has been interesting for the WWE. The road to SummerSlam has been no different, with some good things happening along the way, but also some things that just left us scratching our heads and wondering what the heck is going on here. From some of the storylines just simply not making any sense at all, to tickets for SummerSlam being as low as $25, leaving WWE fans wondering if WWE has something massive planned to maybe try to increase the ticket sales a little bit. At the time I'm filming this, of course, there is no news about something big happening, some big return, surprise, anything like that. We don't know. And before we get too far ahead in the video, I want to say that if you are a WWE fan, consider subscribing to this YouTube channel. That is all we post is WWE related content. So if you are a WWE fan, again, consider subscribing. It's free. You can always change your mind later. So with all that said, let's officially move on to the match card for SummerSlam 2026. Let's start off by talking about Gunther versus Nick Aldis. And I am extremely excited for this match because I never thought that we were going to get Nick Aldis back in the ring. It felt like for years now that we've been getting teased about Nick Aldis possibly returning into the ring. And it started with Kevin Owens, and there were whispers about him possibly having a match with Kevin Owens. We saw Randy Orton have his little run in with Nick Aldis, leading to people wondering if Nick Aldis was going to have a match with Randy Orton. So that is why that for the majority of this storyline, I haven't really committed to the idea of Nick Aldis actually having a match with Gunther because I've seen that story be told so many times and they didn't give it to us. But the contract is officially signed, and Nick Aldis is going to have a match at SummerSlam against Gunther. And as for who I think ends up winning, I think Gunther's going to end up getting the win, and I think it's going to end up being the right call. I know a lot of people are going to want to see Nick Aldis win, but I think Gunther needs the win a little bit more here. Considering how poorly Gunther has looked in 2026 so far, he needs a win to kind of start building things back up a little bit. And I'm afraid that if they wanted to have Nick Aldis win and beat Gunther, that would make Gunther look pretty bad losing to a general manager. But they could also pull the card about Nick Aldis being a former professional wrestler and pulling from his time with TNA and all that stuff. Like, it's not like Nick Aldis is just a general manager and he has zero background in the ring. So obviously they could pull from that, but I just feel like Gunther needs the win here more. But again, it wouldn't surprise me if WWE wanted to give Nick Aldis the win here, given it is his big return and it's a big stage and it would be a massive moment for Nick Aldis as a professional wrestler personally. And it could also further the storyline of Gunther getting screwed in 2026, which ironically enough, he kind of has taken over the Drew McIntyre spot so far. So while again, I am extremely excited for this match, I think the storyline has been really, really good. One of the better ones that we've had on this road to SummerSlam, and I think Gunther's going to end up getting the win here. Moving along to Dominic Mysterio taking on Danhausen. Kind of similar to what I talked about with Danhausen's match at Saturday night's main event against JD McDonough. I fully expect it to be wacky, goofy, chaotic, and everything that a Danhausen match should be. I do think that we will see the Mini-Hausens somewhere in this match, and maybe this time we actually end up getting the Frankenstein version of The Miz and Kit Wilson, considering we didn't get that at Saturday night's main event. Maybe they wanted to save that for the bigger stage in SummerSlam. I am ultimately going to end up picking Dominic Mysterio to win this match because I think that Dom and the rest of Judgment Day needs this win over Danhausen, and they need to move on from Danhausen, especially Dominic Mysterio. Look, the feud's been fun, but Dom should be doing bigger and better things than running around with Danhausen. And it feels like over the years that SummerSlam has been kind of Dominic Mysterio's PLE, like his big PLE. Like Shawn Michaels was Mr. WrestleMania, Dominic Mysterio feels like he is kind of becoming Mr. SummerSlam in a way. He made his official in-ring debut in 2020. He teamed up with his deadbeat dad in 2022. He defended the IC title against AJ Styles in 2025. In 2024, we had the big swerve when he ended up turning on Rhea Ripley and kissing Liv Morgan. So it feels like over the years that SummerSlam has been kind of Dominic Mysterio's backyard and his kind of bread and butter. So I'm going to end up picking Dominic Mysterio here. Again, I think the match should be fun. It should be wacky and chaotic and all that stuff that a Danhausen match is. But again, I want to see Dom move on to bigger things than Danhausen. And that goes for the rest of the Judgment Day as well. So I think that Dom and the rest of Judgment Day need this win. So I'm going to end up picking Dom to win against Danhausen. Moving on to the 6-women tag team match between Fatal Influence taking on the team of the Bellas and Paige. And it feels really, really good knowing that Fatal Influence is walking in to this match at SummerSlam with gold around their waist, because they were one of my favorite parts of NXT before they got called up to the main roster. And since they have been called up to the main roster, they have looked incredible. I think both Fallon Henley and Lainey Reed have looked incredible so far on the main roster. And I feel like those were kind of the two question marks when they called up the entire group of Fatal Influence to the main roster. We knew, if you watched NXT before their call up, you knew JC Jane was more than ready for the main roster, but we didn't quite know about Fallon and Lainey, but they have looked really, really solid. And they have worked amazing as a tag team on the main roster as well. And that leaves JC Jane kind of by herself. And that really, really stinks, because she is such an incredible talent. And I was really hoping that she was going to be part of that women's interim championship match at SummerSlam as well, but ultimately she's just not going to be in the mix. But I'm hoping that they kind of work things out with JC Jane and they can make her into the strong single star that she can be, while also still being part of Fatal Influence. They just work so well together. Now, I am not going to rule out a possible turn from Nikki Bella. Whether it be a heel turn or a face turn, I'm not entirely sure which way that could go, but I'm not going to rule it out. And it would kind of make sense. Obviously, she would feel kind of jealous that Paige kind of took her spot. Whether she turns on Paige or Brie, either one, you have an interesting story to make it make sense. And because of that possibility, I'm going to end up picking Fatal Influence here, and I think that it's going to continue their big push that they've been getting recently. Again, they've been doing some really, really good work on the main roster so far, and I think that they're just going to get even better. Moving on to the 6-man tag team match between the Bloodline, taking on the team of LA Knight, Solo Sikoa, and Royce Keys. And right off the bat, we need to talk about Solo Sikoa. Solo Sikoa, in my opinion, has shined the brightest out of this entire story. He has been so unbelievably good throughout this entire story, and he is so much better than people give him credit for with his comedic timing and just his overall, just his way to connect to the audience is something that is very, really rare. And it started to work on the WWE Universe, because I've seen people calling for Solo to be pushed as a babyface. And honestly, I'm right there with them, because he has done such a good job. And the fact that WWE had this guy be a part of the original Bloodline and have him just stand there, do nothing, say nothing. Looking back on it, as good as he was in the Bloodline, he should be on his own, and he should be the babyface in all of this. He's done such a good job. And on the flip side, LA Knight has also looked incredible in this story. And specifically his promo work. His promos have been incredible in this story. And look, LA Knight is usually very, very good on the mics, but it feels like with this storyline, he has really, really cranked things up a little bit. And it's starting to get people talking about whether or not LA Knight could possibly get that elusive Money in the Bank win that we seem to be talking about every year with Knight. I'm still not entirely sure how Royce Keys ended up in this position, but I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do in this match. Now, despite all the good that that team has done, with Solo really emerging and really kind of coming to his own by himself a little bit, without the MFTs, without the bloodline, to LA Knight's amazing work with his promos and his in ring work has been really good so far. I do think that the bloodline is going to end up getting the win here because they're the bloodline. I think Jimmy, Jay, and Jacob Fatu are going to end up getting the job done. I think they're going to end up getting the win here. And I don't necessarily know how it's all going to unfold, but I just have that gut feeling that they're going to end up getting the win here. But I think coming out of this storyline is kind of the bigger story, and that's the emergence of Solo Sikoa possibly as a single star, and LA Knight possibly moving forward, moving closer to that elusive Money in the Bank win. Moving on to the interim WWE Women's Championship ladder match, where we have Tiffany Stratton taking on Jade Cargill, Charlotte Flair, Chelsea Green, and either Lash Legend or Julia. The final qualifying match is set to take place between Lash and Julia on the next episode of Friday Night SmackDown, and honestly, I'm fine with either one getting in. If I had to pick, I'd probably pick Julia just because I think that she could add a lot to that ladder match, and nothing against Lash Legend. I think she would add a tremendous amount of fun into that ladder match, but I just feel like Julia kind of needs this a little bit more, but I'm fine with either way they end up going here. What I'm not a fan of is the whole interim champion thing, because I feel like whoever wins this is just going to be kind of the meaningless champion until Rhea gets healthy. And I just don't think that it's going to mean as much to whoever wins this when it should mean a tremendous amount. Like, imagine if they ended up having Rhea vacate the championship and this was for the actual title itself and not the interim tag. Imagine what kind of boost that could provide to someone in this match, and I don't even think that who's in this match makes a whole lot of sense either. The early rumors moving into SummerSlam were Jade Cargill and Charlotte Flair were going to have a match. Big thumbs up for me. Tiffany Stratton and Blake Monroe were supposed to have a match. Big thumbs up to me. But the fact that those matches aren't happening now, and the fact that they are in this ladder match, just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I would have preferred Tiffany Stratton versus Blake Monroe. I would have preferred Jade Cargill versus Charlotte Flair on their own, especially Jade and Charlotte, because that's a feud and a match that has been teased for such a long time now, and I'm really upset that we're not going to get it here. Now, because of all of those scenarios, I'm going to end up picking Chelsea Green. Is this probably going to end up being the wrong pick? Yeah, probably, but I don't really care. I'm picking Chelsea Green to become the interim WWE Women's Champion. Because not only is she kind of the only one without kind of a side story going on here, obviously she has her kind of partnership developing with Tiffany Stratton, but I would love to see what Chelsea Green can do as an interim champion. Again, if you are going to have an interim champion, you might as well make it as memorable as possible. And I think Chelsea Green has the best chance of making this entire situation the most memorable. And she's another one that I think could use another little bit of a boost here because I think as we get closer to Money in the Bank, a lot of people see her as one of the favorites to possibly win Money in the Bank this year. And I think her becoming the interim WWE and I think her becoming the interim champion here, I think could go a long way for that. So I'm going to end up picking Chelsea Green. Moving on to Obafemi taking on Brock Lesnar in a Hell in a Cell match. I am so incredibly excited for this match. And what I want from this match is a long battle between these two. We've had these short, little, incredible matches, but I want to see what these two could do in the cell for a extended period of time. I want to see something right along the lines of what we got between Drew McIntyre and CM Punk's Hell in a Cell match. I think that a similar style match would absolutely be amazing between Brock and Oba. And who I want to see win is Obafemi. I think Oba needs the win here. I think if WWE wants to continue to push him, then they would give him the win. Now, what worries me is we're in Brock Lesnar's hometown of Minnesota here, and WWE seems to be a little hesitant on pulling the trigger on Obafemi and pushing him to bigger things. We've seen examples of this so far after he won King of the Ring, and they elected to have him take on Brock Lesnar one more time, as opposed to going after a championship. So I want Oba to win, but I'm not necessarily 100% sold on it. And I'm also extremely curious to see what this crowd is going to be like, because again, Obafemi being incredibly popular with the crowds right now in the WWE and taking on a guy that's in his hometown with Brock Lesnar. So I'm extremely excited to see what the crowd and the atmosphere is going to be like. As for where on the card this match goes, I have no idea. I can assume that they're going to put it on the first hour on ESPN, considering that's what they seem to be doing with Brock and Oba matches. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if they are on that first hour of ESPN, and honestly, not the biggest fan of that, but we'll deal with it. But again, I want this to be a long match. I want this to be along the lines of Drew Punk. Whether they stay in the cell or they bust out of the cell, I'm okay with either one. But I want a long car crash of a match between these two because we know that they are capable of it. So I want Oba to win. I want Oba to continue getting pushed to the moon. I'm not entirely sold on it though. Moving on to the United States Championship match between Trick Williams and Baron Corbin. Now, I was not expecting Baron Corbin to even be back in the WWE, let alone seeing him have a match at SummerSlam. I was honestly hoping that it was going to be Trick Williams versus Carmelo Hayes for the United States Championship at SummerSlam, but here we are with Baron Corbin. And I'm honestly kind of surprised that immediately Baron Corbin gets a championship opportunity after he returns to the company, which makes me wonder just what they have in store for Baron Corbin now that he is back in the WWE. However, I do still think that Trick Williams is going to win and retain the United States Championship. I think that he's just got too much going for him right now, and you could put him against anybody and he could make that feud good. Now, if this match does end up going very good, I could see a prolonged feud between these two, and possibly Carmelo Hayes making an appearance in this match would make it even more enticing. Because then, at that point, you could have a triple threat down the line, or if Carmelo Hayes comes in, cost Baron Corbin the match, those two have a feud for a little bit, and then we inevitably circle back to Trick Williams. So again, I don't really necessarily know what WWE's plans are with Baron Corbin right now, but it is kind of interesting that the fact that he gets put back in the WWE and immediately gets a title opportunity, the possibility of him winning this match isn't zero. But again, ultimately, I just feel like Trick Williams has more to offer with this championship, and I genuinely think that it is all going to come together when he has that one-on-one feud with Carmelo Hayes. I think that is when we could see Trick Williams' title reign potentially come to an end if it's against Carmelo Hayes. Maybe that's just wishful thinking on my part because I want to see Trick versus Melo again, but considering that Trick Williams' biggest rival in the WWE up to this point was Carmelo Hayes, it would make sense for his big United States Championship defense coming against Carmelo Hayes. But before we get to that point, he's got to get through Baron Corbin, and I think he'll do that. Moving on to the number one contenders match for the Undisputed Championship, which happens to be Finn Balor taking on Sami Zayn. And this is the one that I probably spent the most time going back and forth because a lot of it is obviously going to depend on what happens between CM Punk and Cody Rhodes as for who wins the Undisputed Championship, whether it be Cody Rhodes winning that championship back or whether it be CM Punk winning and retaining. I could see Finn Balor winning this match, going on and having that Undisputed Championship match, considering it seems like they are actually pushing Finn Balor, but at the same time, I could easily see Sami Zayn winning and continuing that story. And after going back and forth so many times, I ended up landing on Sami Zayn. And I'm picking Sami Zayn because his story works with both CM Punk or Cody Rhodes. If CM Punk ends up winning and retaining, Sami Zayn goes after the guy who beat him for the championship. So there you go. And if Cody Rhodes ends up winning, Sami Zayn goes after the Golden Boy. That's the feud that Sammy has really had as of late is Cody Rhodes. So, as much as I would love to see Finn Balor actually win and get an undisputed championship match, I ultimately think it's going to be Sammy winning simply because I just think his story works with either guy, regardless of who wins. But I still do think that Finn Balor is going to get that push, even if he doesn't get the undisputed championship shot right away. Finn Balor's been on a bit of a hot streak as of late, so I guess the possibility isn't zero, but I'm still going to end up picking Sammy. Moving on to the Intercontinental Championship match between Penta and Chad Gable. And this is one that I have had circled since it got announced. I am so freaking excited for this match. I think it is going to be an awesome match and could end up being a contender for match of the night. And it also could be a very good story that they tell in the ring. Let's not forget the whole reason why Chad Gable initially became El Grande Americano in the first place was to beat Penta. So the reason why El Grande Americano exists in the first place is because of Penta. So I think that they could tell a super interesting story here. And I think with Chad Gable being the babyface again, I think that they could do it in a really nice and respectful way and really show the respect between both Chad and Penta. And because of that story, I'm going to end up picking Chad Gable to win. So I think in my book, it's a win win if Chad Gable ends up winning. We get a really nice full circle finish to this story that they've been telling for Chad Gable. And we also get to have a great moment of him winning a championship in his hometown. So again, I think Chad winning makes the most sense. I think it's been a good run from Penta, but I think Chad has earned this spot. And again, really tying a nice bow on this whole story that started and launched El Grande Americano. Moving on to the Women's World Championship match between Liv Morgan and Io Sky. Boy, oh boy, where do I start with this one? First off, this build has been terrible. Liv Morgan has spent more time with Danhausen than she has Liv Morgan. This feud, I can't even really call it a feud because it doesn't feel like there's any bad blood between these two. And I just can't help but shake the feeling that WWE just completely fumbled Liv Morgan's title reign here. Again, her entering Queen of the Ring in the first place made zero sense, and it still makes zero sense. And the fact that we did end up getting Liv Morgan and Io Sky, you could have just had this match happen at Night of Champions and then happen again here. Obviously, that match at Night of Champions wouldn't be for the Queen of the Ring title, it would be for the Women's World Championship. Now, I ultimately ended up going with Liv Morgan winning and retaining here, simply because I think that WWE is really determined at this point to have another match between Liv and Stephanie Valquer. Hopefully that return from Stephanie Valquer is relatively soon and we actually end up getting a proper feud for the Women's World Championship because this title has suffered so far with Liv Morgan as champion. Now, all that negative stuff aside, this match actually should be very, very good. Obviously, we know what they're capable of. We just saw them at Night of Champions. I think that this match should be very good. It should be just as good, if not possibly better, than what we saw at Night of Champions. But that still doesn't help that this feud was just terrible. Moving on to the Undisputed Championship match between CM Punk and Cody Rhodes. And this feud has been terrible. This feud has been bad in my opinion. I'm sorry. I was so excited for this feud, genuinely excited when we were going to get Punk versus Cody, but now we're here, and now I don't ever want to see these two in a feud again. Or at the very least, anytime soon, and at least when they're not both baby faces. If one was a heel, I genuinely think that this feud would be much better than what it was, but with them both being baby faces, it just kind of feels like two guys being dudes. We had their team up at Saturday night's main event where we got the tale as old as time, the will they be able to coexist story. Then it shifted to Cody Rhodes being mad that CM Punk bumped him with the title. And then we got, whether it was an accident or not, or it's just been bad. And look, this is a Cody Rhodes match for the Undisputed Championship, and he's not the champion. He is chasing the championship, so we know how Cody Rhodes likes to win these matches. And I'm not ruling out a Cody Rhodes win here, but I am ultimately going to end up picking CM Punk. And I am picking CM Punk simply because I think it would mean more for Sami Zayn to go on and have that match with CM Punk, considering it was Punk who beat Sami for the title. But again, like I talked about in that number one contenders match between Finn Balor and Sami Zayn, if Sami ends up winning that number one contenders match, his story works for either Punk or Cody. So I'm not necessarily ruling out a Cody Rhodes win here because, again, it's Cody Rhodes in a match where he's not the champion, so he very easily could walk in and win because it's Cody Rhodes. But I think the more interesting story is kind of at this point Punk versus Sami Zayn. And I think that that's what we're ultimately going to end up getting, so Sami can try to get his redemption for losing to CM Punk in the first place. And that takes us to the World Heavyweight Championship match between Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. And my God, I'm just hoping for it to be a one-on-one match. No celebrity involvement from Jalen Brunson or Tyrese Halliburton. No bloodline interference. I want just a clean one-on-one match. That is pretty much what this story has been about. Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins. No one else. So it is a win in my book if we do not see Jalen Brunson or Tyrese Halliburton before this match or during this match. Again, it needs to be one-on-one. Roman versus Seth. Because one of the main stories in this entire storyline is Roman Reigns not being able to beat Seth Rollins in a big title match, and he hasn't been able to do that yet. And I do love the fact that Roman Reigns, since he has come back to the bloodline, he has won on his own. He hasn't relied on the bloodline like he did before. He's done it on his own, and I want that to be the case here. And I do think that Roman is going to win, and I hope that it is going to be on his own. I think that it is going to mean more for Roman to finally beat Seth in a big match and doing it all on his own. So again, it is a win in my book if we have no interference, no shenanigans, no celebrities, no bloodline, no nothing, just one-on-one match between two long-time rivals. Let their history speak for itself and let this match be what it should be. This is where I want to hear from you guys. Let me know down below in the comment section your thoughts on my predictions, and let me know what your predictions are for SummerSlam 2026. As always, don't forget to leave all of your thoughts and opinions down below in the comment section, and while you're down there, swing by the description and click the Linktree link. That is the only link in the description for a reason. That is because it will take you to all of the social